All right, let's start with the big story that we're tracking on Wion at this hour, which is in fact coming from New York, where China has yet again blocked the listing of Masood Azhar at the United Nations Security Council. And this is the fourth time that Beijing has blocked the bid to list Jaish-e-Mohammad chief as a global terrorist. Now, an hour before the deadline, remember, this is just an hour before the deadline, China placed what is described as a technical hold on the proposal that was moved by 3 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council to list Jaish-e-Mohammad chief under the United Nations sanctions regime. Now, the United Nations Committee makes its decisions by consensus amongst its members, and the proposal against Azhar had in fact been moved by the United States, the United Kingdom and France after the Jaish-e-Mohammad had claimed responsibility for the Pulwama attack that had killed about 40 Indian security personnel in Kashmir. China, remember, is a veto-wielding permanent member of the Security Council and a close ally of Pakistan, and has blocked India's proposal from being adopted by the Sanctions Committee yet again. Now, Pakistan has in fact been under growing international pressure to crack down on terror groups operating from its soil. The Pulwama attack led to the most serious escalation between India and Pakistan in years, with India conducting an airstrike on a Jaish-e-Mohammad camp within Pakistan that was followed by an aerial engagement along the line of control. Now, Beijing's latest blocking to list Masood Azhar, of course, raises the question about the apparent upswing in relations between New Delhi after last year's informal summit between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping at Wuhan. Now, India's permanent representative to the United Nations, Syed Akbaruddin, has tweeted cryptically on China's decision, stating that only one big state has held up the listing of Masood Azhar. And also my colleague Siddhant Sibil, who's been tracking this story very closely, has sent us this report.
A day after China blocked the listing of Masood Azhar as an international terrorist under the United Nations Security Council's 1267 committee, there is a sense of betrayal here in New Delhi. We saw 2018 being a year of reset between India-China relationship, starting with the famous Wuhan summit in April, and then of course the Indian Prime Minister and the Chinese President meeting for 4 times in 2018. But it seems that the Wuhan spirit no longer exists because China clearly backing Pakistan. Masood Azhar is the chief of Jaish-e-Mohammad, the group behind the Pulwama terror attack in which India lost more than 40 of its CRPF personnel. Today marks 1 month since that dastardly attack in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir, and terror remains the core concern for New Delhi. Terror from Pakistan, and it seems right now China has lot when it comes to Pakistan, especially the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and that is something that led Beijing to block the listing of Masood Azhar as an international terrorist for the 4th time at the United Nations Security Council, something that New Delhi will not forget and of course will see as the great Chinese betrayal. With video journalist Ankit, Siddhant Sibil for Wion World is One in New Delhi.
All right, so that was Wion. Siddhant Sibil there filing his reporter. It's exactly a month since the dastardly Pulwama attack, and this is also the 4th time that China has again blocked the listing of Masood Azhar as a globally recognized terrorist at the United Nations. Now, to add more perspective on this and as to what could possibly have been the motivation behind China blocking the listing of Masood Azhar yet again at the United Nations, we are joined by Mr. Tilak Devasher, who is a former Special Secretary, Cabinet Secretariat in the Government of India. So thank you very much indeed for joining us on this broadcast here in Wion. And let me begin by asking you this. This is not the first time that China has in fact blocked the listing of Masood Azhar. What do you think would have been the discussion within the Chinese diplomatic circles that could have led China to in fact place what is only described as a technical hold just an hour before Masood Azhar would have been listed as a globally recognized terrorist?
You see, in the case of China, quite clearly, Pakistan is the all-weather friend, and on which they have invested a very substantial amount of money in the China-Pakistan economic corridor. And the China-Pakistan economic corridor is seen as the flagship project of President Xi Jinping's, dream Belt and Road initiative. So they've gone out of the way to support Pakistan to ensure that Pakistan doesn't get embarrassed. But I think in the process, China has really embarrassed itself more than anything else, because China is now today identified by everybody, by the international community, and if you read the US statement, clearly standing on the side of terrorists sponsoring states.
Right.
So I think China has embarrassed itself and has done no favor. I also feel that in the process of supporting Pakistan, China would have extracted some major concession in terms of either investment or in terms of taking over some portions in some project which they were very keen on doing from Pakistan. Because Pakistan is not in a position now to be able to withstand any pressure from China, especially when China supports them on issues like this, where they are totally isolated in the world. And let me just tell you and your viewers, the 1267 committee has listed about 260 individual entities as a terrorist organization. Of these, over one-third, over 100, are from Pakistan itself. So Pakistan is really the global hub of terror. And if China is going to put a technical hold on Masood Azhar, whose organization is already listed as a terrorist organization, China has really embarrassed itself and identified itself as standing along with the side of terrorists.
Absolutely, indeed. Now, you made a very important point here. Now, more than one-third of those who are already listed as, terrorists at the United Nations happen to be Pakistanis, and Jaish-e-Mohammad has also been listed as a terror organization. With that being the case, Mr. Devasher, why do you think China has been blocking Masood Azhar's listing as a globally recognized terrorist?
It is surprising. It's just basically to do Pakistan a favor rather than anything else. Because, I'm sure China also realizes that just by listing a person under the sanctions committee is not really effective means of stopping terrorism. If Pakistan is not interested in stopping terrorism, maybe sanctioning Azhar is not going to make a difference. Despite this, if China has gone out of the way to support Pakistan by blocking this, I think there is something more that which China is seeking to extract from Pakistan, and to make sure that Pakistan is embarrassed or further isolated internationally.
I think that is an important point. What needs to be seen is as to what is the pound of flesh that China, in fact, is seeking to draw by giving this concession to Pakistan. Do continue to stay on with this. Meanwhile, India's reaction to the latest blockade did not mention any names. The Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement immediately after the proposal got blocked, stating that they are disappointed by the outcome and that this move has prevented action by the international community to designate Masood Azhar as a terrorist. Now, the ministry has also stated that they will continue to pursue all available avenues to ensure that terrorist leaders who are involved in heinous Pulwama attacks are brought to justice. Remember, in 2017 as well, India had indirectly identified China as the UNSC member responsible for blocking the consensus on listing Azhar. Now, the MEA had posted a statement in response to a query on Beijing's role, stating that they are deeply disappointed that a single country has blocked the listing of Masood Azhar yet again. But why did India not name China openly? This, of course, is something that needs to be pondered upon. We spoke to ex-Indian ambassador to Afghanistan, Vivek Karju, earlier, and here is what he had to say.
The Americans are going all out mentioning China. Why should we, who have a principal concern regarding Masood Azhar, a country that is facing a direct impact of his activities, losing precious lives of our young men, show diffidence in even mentioning China by name in our statement? I don't understand this kind of diplomacy. We should be forthright in saying that we are disappointed that China has held this up. Point a finger at them.
All right, so that is what Vivek Karju had to say, India's former ambassador. Now, Mr. Devasher, let me bring you in on this. The wording of India's statement, are you disappointed with that? Because we did not take any names. We've not in any way questioned what China has done, although we've expressed our displeasure. Do you think India diplomatically has gone soft on China, despite the fact that China is the one that is responsible for the repeated blockage of Masood Azhar being listed as a globally recognized terrorist?
So there can be two views of this. And what Ambassador Karju says, I think, is articulating the frustration that a lot of people feel that why we didn't name China. I, on the other hand, feel that, like diplomacy or relations with any country are multifaceted. They're not a single issue. So if you want, negotiations with China on a whole range of issues, so do you want to put everything into this one basket and embarrass China by naming China? Or you think you can get your way in other areas by not naming China, being subtle about it? There are two views about it. And I think the Minister of External Affairs has probably taken what it thought. That
right.
There's so many to do so at this moment, but quietly express your frustration and anger with the Chinese. So, I would imagine that was the reasoning why China was not named.
Absolutely, but last year we had this resetting of ties between India and China, where there was an informal meet between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Chinese President Xi Jinping. But it appears when push comes to shove, that little seems to have changed on the ground, and China still seems to be favouring Pakistan, despite the fact that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terrorism.
Once again, the Wuhan and the Wuhan spirit, as it's called, you can't make a single issue and say that it is no longer existing. Yes, you could treat it as a setback. They have done what they have done for their national interest. We should push our national interest. And our national interest is to make sure that terrorism emanating from Pakistan is finished. You think just by listing Masood Azhar on 1267 will make Pakistan stop terror activities? I don't think so. I know this is just one small peg, small step. It will be a big diplomatic group. But I don't think that we should hold our entire relationship and the Wuhan spirit hostage to our frustration and anger to the Chinese, but do it in a manner that does not embarrass the Chinese and does not put a strain on the bilateral relationship publicly.
I think that's an interesting take that you give, Mr. Tilak Devasher, where you say that, what has happened post-Wuhan should not be decided upon with China's insistence on continuing to back Masood Azhar. Thank you very much indeed for joining us in this broadcast on Wion.